Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is a big game, and I'm just going to start this video by saying I love the vast majority of this game. I was pretty sure day one that I was going to go for the platinum, and yep, that's what I did. I'll start by saying that I'm not going to talk about the story at all, but there may be stuff on screen like boss fights from late game or the post-game arena missions. I'm also not going to go through every trophy as some are story related or require so little work that I wouldn't have anything to talk about. I'm not going to be able to think of a sentence to say, you have to complete one battle. It's very hard to do that. Like I said, this is a big game. It took me about 85 hours to beat the game, and along the way I had gotten most of the trophies already. 52 of the 60 to be exact. Although I wasn't rushing the story, I was doing most of the side stuff as it became available. I guess I'll go through a lot of that side stuff now and just give my thoughts on all of it. I'll start with the side quests because I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on them. Most of these aren't difficult or super involved. A few require you to craft items which you might need to go out of your way to farm materials for, but again, not too big an issue. There's another one that requires you to do all the chocobo races, which you need to do for another trophy anyway, so you're killing 2 chocobos with 1 stone, although now that I've said that, I just want to reiterate that I don't condone throwing stones at chocobos. The hardest side quest is the last one you unlock, and is for one reason only. As part of it, you have to do some arena battles, and for whatever reason, someone decided to have you fight 10 Tomberries in one fight. This was the least fun I had up to this point. It just felt really unbalanced compared to everything before and after it. What I ended up doing was lowering the difficulty, and even then, it wasn't a sure victory. Please nerf these Tomberries. Every other side quest is completely manageable. You know, playing this game I actually felt like a bit of a hypocrite, as I will constantly make fun of Ubisoft towers being in every game, and yet here they are in this game and I found them really relaxing. Not very engaging, just relaxing. In fairness though, it's not just towers you've got to do. There's special monsters and this little timing memory minigame thing and the Moogle minigame that I really like, so there's a bit more to unlocking all the fast travel points than just hitting the button on the tower. I would say the main highlights of the area exploration stuff though is the proto-relics. These vary from area to area and are basically just mini side quest lines. My favourite set of these was probably the Fort Condor one, because Fort Condor has always been super fun and I'm really glad they brought it back in this game. After getting all the proto-relics, you unlock the super boss that I'm spending a long time now saying words so that you can mute or tab out if you don't want to hear what it is. Gilgamesh. He's a funny dude who I think sounds like Optimus Prime. Anyone agree with that? Anyway, before fighting him you have to do these double summon fights, which, personally, I actually found harder than Gilgamesh himself. I'm a big baby, so after dying enough times, I just lowered the difficulty, which, yes, incredibly dishonourable, but I wanted to do it before beating the game. Oh, I also got the 300% stagger trophy on Gilgamesh, just used Tifa and spammed her unbridled strength unique skills. After this, I got all the materia from Chadley to get another trophy as well. I'll next take a bit of time to talk about the minigames that I haven't talked about yet. Queen's Blood is so good. Genuinely, why do games keep putting card minigames in their big games, and why do they take so much of my time without me realizing it? The answer is because they're really fun, of course. I was able to beat most of the games with a slightly modified starter deck, though that was far from playing optimally. I was kind of just bashing my head against it until it went through. But the final battle requires a very specific tactic, but once I used it, it went down first try. Can they release real-life Queen's Blood, please? Because I would totally buy that and force people to play it with me. Now, when I found out there was a piano rhythm game, I was completely stoked, as I love rhythm games. I'm sort of ashamed about how much I struggled with the later songs. I promise I have rhythm. Then there's the 3D brawler boxing minigame thing. Now, I almost like this one. You gotta dodge the right way based on the animation. The problem to me is that some of these look too similar at a glance, so what I and pretty much everyone else ended up doing was pause buffering to give yourself more time to dodge. Once you start doing that, it is a lot easier to beat all the opponents. Yes, it's cheap, but I don't know how you're meant to do it without pause buffering, quite frankly. There's also the bike minigame, which I don't have strong feelings on, but it's there, and I think you have to do it for the collection trophy, which I'll get to a bit later on. After doing all this, I beat the game for the first time, and yes, 85 hours in, there's still a lot more to go. First thing I went and did after beating the game was the Desert Rush minigame to get the last weapon for Tifa, and indeed the last weapon that I was missing. I don't like this minigame, didn't like it before and I still don't like it now. Took me a couple tries, but it wasn't a massive issue. After this I got to work unlocking each weapon skill while going through the arena in the Gold Saucer. For this small grind I decided to play on easy, might be a cop out, but the later battles have to be done on hard mode anyway, so I figured I can at least take this part a little bit easy. After doing the weapons I decided to get all the stuff for Johnny. I was at 62 out of 88, so not too much more to go. First, I bought the remaining few things from the Golden Saucer. After that, I did a ton of mini games, so I'm just going to run through them all that I haven't done at this point and blast them out really quickly without issue. Grassland Chocobo Time Trial. Glide the Chocobo. Okay, I know we just started, but I really struggled with this one. My main issue was I wasn't pulling up enough. After figuring that out though, I got a lot better. The Frog Wipeout Game. The Shooting Gallery. The Dolphin Time Trial. Fort Condor Hard Mode. Card Carnival Challenges. The Red 13 Football Game, or Soccer for the Americans. The Sit-Up Game, which took me way too long. I don't like half pressing the trigger, that's dumb. The Gold Saucer Card Challenges. These were fine actually until the survival ones, wasn't a fan of these. I think it's because I don't like withholding cards for later rounds. Desert Rush Hard Mode. Mentioned I hated this earlier, so I looked up a route online. It's cheap, but it works. Gears and Gambits. And the Cactar Crush, which I found reasonably easy except for the second Yuffie one, which I was really struggling with for some reason. I think it was because if you use Windstorm after throwing the Shuriken, it wasn't counting as a magic attack for some reason. After doing all those minigames, I got the buried Chocobo items for Johnny. And then after that, I did some chapter hopping for the things I missed. Minor spoilers, but nothing super plot relevant. I went and redid the Loveless play because I was missing one collectible from it. I guess it was because Yuffie wasn't involved in the play at all in my first run. That's the only thing I can think of. Then I went and redid the gun spinning coronation minigame because I didn't get the trophy my first go. I didn't realize you could switch your guys out and get higher ratings that way. While in the process of that though, I also unlocked all the purple nodes on the weapon upgrade screen for the weapon ability trophy as well. After all that, it was finally time to start the hard mode content. I decided to start with Chadley's missions. This may have been a mistake. Justice for Chadders though, he doesn't deserve all the hate he gets. Pretty early on in doing this, I hit level 70, which is the max level for this game, which is good. I didn't have to go out my way to grind for it at all. So the first thing I learned in these is to equip items that negate Petrify for the early rounds. Personally, I was getting way too wrecked by it, and I was really struggling. The first 3 brutal challenges I managed to do relatively easily, but the 4th, I just couldn't do it for whatever reason. So I went and grinded up materia, equipment, and other stuff and actually had to focus on making half-decent builds instead of the weird mismatch of stuff that I was using before. Turns out that Aerith is actually the best character, as you can magnify top-level magic plus Arcane Ward to double cast, which does insane damage. For the last brutal challenge, I switched Aerith out for red, and if it wasn't clear at this point, I was totally looking up build guides online. Some may consider that cheating, but trust me, just having the builds isn't enough to make this easy. You still have to play well and learn how to attack and dodge and all that. And I think that makes it fine, but I look forward to hearing about how much of a cheat I am in the comments. My run of good luck completely went out of the window when I got to the last brutal challenge. Now, from here, I'm going to be pretty open about all the fights, so you've been warned. This was so goddamn difficult. The first 3 rounds against the summons were honestly pretty easy after a while, but round 4 is Gilgamesh, and naturally he is a challenge. But I don't have a lot to say on it, he's just difficult Gilgamesh. Round 5 is against a new Sephiroth who can chain and octoslash your team, and personally, I was ready to quit. I was just done, I couldn't do it. That is, of course, until I actually started blocking. What? Engaging with the game mechanics? Crazy! Basically, if you perfect block his chains and barrier octoslash, honestly the fight wasn't that bad. It's just that it's after 4 other fights, which means you'll be worn down, might have low MP, and in my case, I was very impatient. Then, we were on to the legendary bouts. These are all solo fights with the characters, plus a few special guests. I decided to go in reverse order, so I started with Kate Sith. Honestly, the first 4 rounds weren't too difficult with the Gotodamarang, sorry about the pronunciation with that, which starts you with a limit break and also slowly refills the limit break over time, so you can just attempt to stall if you need to. I employed the great strategy of running away and taking pot shots from a distance. Round 5 against the Mind Flayer is considerably harder though. Got it the second go around by just using the Moogle and summons as a shield basically, and using ranged attacks. Up next was Yuffie, who is actually my favourite character to play as. I honestly didn't have too much trouble with this. In fact, once I linked Fire Elemental, the 4th and 5th enemies could barely damage me. Red 13 was next. This might be a hot take, but he might be my least favourite to play as. Like, he's not bad, but I can't think of many reasons I would choose to play as Red over anyone else. Despite that though, this only took me a couple of tries. A lot of the enemies here are quite slow, while Red is faster than everyone else as he has 4 legs, which means he can run twice as fast. On to Aerith, who, as I said earlier, is really good with her double cast magic. I actually did this on my second attempt. With lightning linked elemental materia, the final round actually heals you more than it hurts you. The hardest round was actually round 1, as there's 4 enemies which can stun lock you if you don't take them out immediately with magnified magic. Tifa was next, and I find her super fun to play, but she's kinda squishy, so I was a little worried about that. And I was right to be worried, as the third round is against that little goblin dude, who is probably my least favourite enemy. I don't know what it is, but playing as Tifa just makes me want to be aggressive, and this dude is all about countering and picking your moment. Once I actually did this though, I managed to do the other rounds first try. Though I was worried about being petrified, some bobbing and weaving made sure that didn't happen. Moving on to Barret, who is low-key actually one of my favourite characters in the game. At first, for some reason, I thought this would be really easy. In fact, the third round is a complete cinch if you have Elemental linked with fire. In fact, I didn't struggle at all until the fourth round with the Adamantoise, just because Barret is not mobile at all, and the constant barrage of ranged attacks from the enemy. What I actually ended up doing was switching the summon to Phoenix for some extra damage and extra safety, most importantly. I tried delaying Firers until there was more ranged attacks coming, but I was taking too much damage having to stand still. What led to my ultimate victory was an early pressured focus shot, which massively increases the stagger gauge, as well as learning how to perfect block all his attacks. Round 5 I did first try. A lot of his attacks were fire, so I just absorbed them all. We were on to the last of the solo fights. Cloud. I can't stand the White Wolf enemy. It's up there as one of my worst enemies in the game, so the second round was a real struggle. Eventually, I figured out that Punisher mode counter worked really well here. Other than that though, Fire Absorb worked really well, and a lot of the enemies were weak to lightning. The last round was hard, as getting hit by Crush seemed to be an insta-kill, but just dodge, stupid. Thundaga makes relatively quick work of it. With that done though, we were on to the final 2 missions. Now I do want to say that these have special party members, and if you don't want to see them at all, I guess I'll see you next time. For everyone else though, we'll start with To Be a Hero. For this one, Cloud is partnered with old Cephas in a 10-round fight, including all the summons. Annoyingly, on my first attempt, I got to the last round and then got Zantetsuken for an insta-kill, which I thought was very fair. After a few more unlucky goes, I got it eventually after he decided just not to use it. I wish I had more notes on this. Yes, I died a few times, but I was consistently getting far into it. And Sephiroth is actually a really good ally. And then there was only one left. It's the one where you team up with, spoiler warning, Zack Fair. Again, it's the 6 summons, but then the 4 other rounds are different from the Cephas one. I'm gonna be completely honest, at this point, I was ready to say that people were exaggerating the difficulty of these challenges, and honestly, I sort of stand by that. Apart from this mission. Why is Zack not great? I love Zack. He should be good. Even somewhat successful runs of this take so long that you're gonna be quite drained by the end. Much like with the Sephiroth one, there wasn't an instant win strategy or I suddenly changed my strat and I was doing good. I just had to practice and bash my head against it for long enough that eventually the deed was done. There is nothing more disheartening than dying against Odin though after half an hour. I didn't shout and rage because it's a video game, but I certainly didn't go to bed happy. And this happened multiple times. Eventually, the stars aligned, and after I had eventually gotten good playing as Zack, I was able to do it. I had done it, I had beaten every one of Chadley's missions. He gave me a trophy as congratulations, and then Johnny gave me one as well. After that, there was only one trophy remaining. Beat the game again on hard mode. I'm not going to go full detail on it because I would struggle with things to say, but I'm going to mention where I got tripped up, so I'm going to say what the fights are, but not the context surrounding it. The Barret solo fight in Chapter 8. Yes, it took me that long to get stuck. Barret is just not a good character for solo fights due to his lack of mobility. I ended up having to make sure I was doing fire damage with my normal attacks as well as remembering to guard. Remembering to guard is crucial, and yes, I should have known that by now, thank you for asking. That doesn't save you from his third phase though, which at the time I thought was complete nonsense. Stop trying to make me dodge as Barret. He doesn't roll very well. I'm calm now, obviously. But this was the closest to BS I think this game had ever been, and I'm including the Chadley challenges in that statement. Although weirdly, does this fight end when you destroy the tentacle arms? Because I used a limit to invincibility frame through an attack, and then the fight just ended, and he still had half his HP. I'm not complaining though, I was happy to be out of there. Gene attack in chapter 10 was the next spot I got stuck for a bit. Oh hey, it's forced Barret again. Didn't take as many tries as Dine, but I did need to fiddle with materia and nick equipment as I never used Red normally, so he was one of the worst built characters I had. The Red Dragon in chapter 13 fills the room with lava, killing you unless you kill it quickly. I hated this. There were no safe area like before, so I basically had to either tank the attack with a full health Barret or Phoenix auto-revive myself after dying to it. Not a specific fight, but Chapter 13 as a whole needs really strict MP management due to its length, and you don't get MP refills at benches and stuff in hard mode. It wasn't too bad, like I never needed to restart the chapter or anything, but I felt the need to mention it. And then the final boss rush as a whole, yes, is difficult. But the hardest part is A, your MP conservation again, and B, having to watch the same in-between phase in-game cutscenes every time you have to restart. The only one of the 10 phases that I think I struggled with was the last one, and thankfully, when you die, you don't have to start the whole thing over again. That would have been legitimately evil. I do wish the partner AI would stop walking into his attacks though. How was the only time I ever had a problem with the AI, the literal last fight I did in the game. Eventually though, with some lucky Phoenix revives and heals, I was able to do it, and with that, I had beaten the story on hard mode. Overall though, it was actually a lot easier than I thought it would be, but I suppose that's what I get for doing Chadley's challenges first. In case you were wondering, my final game time was around 141.5 hours, 85 hours for the first playthrough, another 45 for post-game clear-up, and finally 11.5 hours for hard mode. Crazy how short the game actually is, skipping cutscenes and only doing the mandatory battles. Honestly, now that it's over, I had a lot of fun with this platinum. This might sound like heresy, but honestly, I don't think this game is as unbearably hard as a lot of people are making it out to be. It's not easy to be clear, but not the impossible challenge I see it described as. The only hard parts really are the hard mode stuff, so Chadley missions and the hard playthrough. If I had to list the 3 hardest things in the game from third to most difficult, it would be the final phase of the final boss, the final brutal challenge from Chadley, and then the Bonds of Friendship challenge. It was tough to decide between the final boss or dying for the third most difficult, but MP management is what was the decider for me. My main advice I guess is first, learn how to block. Especially with Cloud. His counter in Punisher mode can quickly increase the stagger bar against some enemies like Odin for example when he gets charged at. More general advice, but make sure all your characters are built. My Kate Sith and Red weren't great and that came into play in numerous fights in the game. The challenge is, you just need to practice. On the hard ones, there's no instant win strategy. It just boils down to learning the attack patterns and also learning how all the characters work, including the special ones. I'm sure that you will also get the platinum one day. I believe it's so. But that's all from me for now. Thank you for watching. Do you agree with some of the points I've made, or do you think that some things I thought were hard were easy, or vice versa? Have you got the platinum? Let me know in the comments. Are you working on it? I'd love to hear. And if you liked the video though, press the like button on it and subscribe for more trophy hunting videos. Check out the other videos I got on the channel as well. There's some good ones, I promise. But now, I'm off. Hunt them trophies, and I'll see you next time.